Today we are going to show you how to build an engineered deck by Deck Systems. Not only is it the fastest way to build a deck, but it's got style and quality unsurpassed. Instead of delivering you a bundle of lumber, we deliver you a deck kit consisting of pre-cut, pre-drilled, and pre-assembled parts ready for installation. Model TR1216, 11 foot 9.5 by 15 foot 3.5. Order of installation. Step 1. The ledger board. The ledger board comes to you with the top of the board marked. You need to install accordingly. Once you determine the height of your deck, you need to locate a mark 1 5/8 inches down to leave clearance for your deck board. When determining deck location left to right, make sure you're not obstructing a window, electrical outlet, etc. with your rail post. Now you can nail or screw ledger board to the house. You need to consult with your local building department or professional to determine proper attachment to house. Deck Systems is not advising or recommending any particular method of connecting ledger to house. Furthermore, Deck Systems is not responsible for a connection to house. Structures may vary, and not all structures are acceptable to handle the load of a deck. In this particular situation, we determined 1/2 inch by 5 inch lag bolts, 16 inches on center, staggered is acceptable. Step 2. Installing perimeter assembly. Install perimeter assembly using number 10 by 1.5 inch structural screws into metal corner attached to perimeter assembly. Also, nail 5 10-penny galvanized nails through perimeter assembly into ledger, and finally 2 4-inch ledger locks through pre-drilled holes in perimeter assembly into ledger. Level perimeter assembly, support and brace from both directions. Step 3. Installing the right perimeter assembly. Simply repeat step 2 on the opposite side. Step 4. Installing main beam. Install first half of beam with X's and lines facing house. Install beam on 2x2 side opposite of house using 2 3-inch deck screws. Install through the 2x2 installed from factory on perimeter assembly. Step 5. Install second half of main beam. Choose the best looking side of the board to face out. Gang nail second half of beam onto first half of beam, aligning the bottom and ends of the board. Step 5A. Add temporary supports under main beam. Install temporary supports on back side of main beam, approximately 1 foot away from holes in beam. Next, install temporary support under main beam. These will support the load-bearing 6x6s. Step 5B. Make sure your deck is square. Measure diagonally, corner to corner in both directions. If needed, carefully adjust frame until both measurements are equal. Install diagonal bracing to make sure your frame remains square and doesn't fall over. Step 6. Installing your load-bearing posts. First, you will need to straighten your main beam if necessary. Permanent support of the deck is supplied by the footings of the deck. Essentially, footings are holes in the ground filled with concrete. To locate footings, use a level and mark directly below holes on side of beam facing house. Then drill or dig holes. Holes are typically dug out to 12 inches wide at base and 30 inches deep. However, depending on geographical location, frost lines, code requirement, and exact load of deck, these dimensions may vary. Hang 6 by 6 from main beam with 2 1/2 by 8 inch carriage bolts. Most localities allow you to install 6 by 6 ground contact treated directly into footing, leaving a minimum of 8 inches between bottom of post and bottom of footing. Step 7. Installing your floor joists. After your concrete is cured, you are now ready to install your floor joists. Using the lines and X's on your ledger board, install side of joist even with line, and the butt end of the board will cover your X. Top of joist should be even with top of ledger board. Once you have your joist nailed to your house, you are ready to attach the joist to your main beam. Using the corresponding marks on your main beam, attach joist to main beam by toenailing joist into beam. Step 8. Installing front perimeter assembly. Installing your front perimeter assembly, you will use 10 gauge by 1.5 inch structural screws for the corners. First, align corners of perimeter assembly and also align the top. Then screw in to metal corners. Repeat on opposite corner of the deck. Next, install any joist onto front perimeter assembly that may be sticking above the front perimeter assembly. Then install joists that are left. We recommend toenailing and toe screwing into front perimeter assembly. Step 9. Installing perimeter beam boards. Perimeter beam board comes with notch and board. Simply lay notch over beam and install perimeter beam board even or slightly below perimeter assembly. Simply gang nail or screw one board to the next. Step 10. Install decking. When installing decking, use a 1 inch overhang beyond 2 by 4 stepped fascia. It's important to screw one screw into perimeter assembly and one screw into joist. Repeat at each joist across the front of your first board. Locating 1 inch away, we are installing our first screw, then our back screw going into joist. This will prevent the front perimeter assembly from pulling away from our joists. Typically speaking, treated deck boards will have bends and dimensional imperfections. It will require some maneuvering and prying to eliminate spacing between boards. Perfection is impossible. Treated lumber has these imperfections, and that's just part of having a treated deck. Step 11. Laying out your post cutouts. Post cutouts are located using 2 by 4 stepped fascia. Lay out post cutouts with combination square or pocket jig. Step 12. Cutting out your pockets for your posts. Using a circular saw or jigsaw, cut out your pockets. When using a circular saw, you will need to finish your cut with a reciprocating saw. It's important to lean your blade in when you're using a reciprocating saw so you don't cut your 2 by 4 stepped fascia. There you have a pocket ready for post installation. Step 13. Installing inline and corner posts. Install inline posts on front perimeter assembly using 1 1/2 inch by 8 inch bolt on the top and 1 1/2 inch by 10 inch bolt on the bottom. Simply slide post into place and install washer, lock washer, and nut on the backside. Inline posts On the side perimeter assembly, use one 10-inch bolt at the top and one 12-inch bolt at the bottom. Corner posts are installed using one 1/2-inch by 12-inch bolt with washer, lock washer, and nut. Simply tighten down. Your corner post will have a little flex until railing is installed. After posts are installed, it's time to install adjustable post stiffeners. It's important to hold post level when installing post stiffener. Simply screw on nut, lock washer, and washer onto lower bolt, leaving approximately 1/2 inch between nuts. Slide post stiffener over bolt and install washer, lock washer, and nut. Tighten down until split washer flattens out. Hold post level and screw three 3-inch deck screws into top of stiffener into bottom of flooring. Release post and adjust to plumb if necessary. Step 14. Installing handrails. Handrails are installed with a 3-inch space between lower runner on handrail and deck surface. Simply rest 2 deckboard cutoffs under each end of rail for spacing. This will give us a 36.5-inch overall height on our railing. Using a clamp or a cargo strap, clamp rail into place centering between rail posts. Using 8 3-inch deck screws and 2 4-inch ledger locks, install handrails. Install 3-inch screws first, then your 4-inch ledger locks are screwed into bottom side of top runner. These are structural screws used to prevent long-term failure of your rail system, and also to reinforce your corners due to the fact that you only have one bolt in your corner post. It's important to level posts and install intermediate handrails first, and finally install your corner rails last. Step 15. Installing deck stiffeners. Deck stiffeners are optional on decks close to grade. Deck stiffeners are installed using 5 4-inch ledger locks and 4 3-inch deck screws. First, install short stiffener with 4-inch ledger lock at top of beam, making sure stiffener is flush with backside of beam. Next, sister long stiffener on backside of short stiffener. And install 3 ledger locks on long stiffener. Install final ledger lock into small stiffener. And finally, install 2 3-inch deck screws at top of the bottom part of stiffeners. This deck took 20 experienced man-hours to install. That included cutting out concrete and cutting brick back and around the lower post. Normal installation would have taken about 16. Our decks are designed with long-term quality as our #1 goal. We engineered our decks to stand sturdy and strong for years to come. At Deck Systems, our engineered decks are not only smart, they're good looking.